I think you have to look at the big picture, right? I mean,
Mhm.
for me, it wasn't just what was happening at the charts, but it was like, what is driving that change? And knowing
Yeah.
that it was like TV,
Yeah.
or movies that were going to be driving it.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sarah Rosette.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show, we have
Lynn Morrison and Anne Radcliffe.
Yes. Lynn has been on the show before, but Anne has not. And they co-written a series, kind of Bridgerton meets Regency mystery. And it's done so well. And it's a great interview about spotting trends, writing to trends, but also writing what you love and writing what, staying true to the genre and really
collaboration. I would say it's Bridgerton inspired kind of.
Yeah, it's Bridgerton.
If you enjoyed Bridgerton, but you like historical mystery, you'll like this series. A clean sweep mystery series. Yeah. Then, so that's kind of their marketing is like, if you're interested in this, but you like this type of mystery, you can get these two things together. Yeah. We talked to them about how they collaborated, about how they marketed it. Yeah. And the advice they have for spotting trends. So yeah, it's really, really interesting and fun. They have a great rapport.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
We have a new supporter, Sarah, with an H. Different. It's not me. Yeah. And she chose the unicorn emoji. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Yeah. We appreciate it so much.
We do. So thanks to all our supporters. And if you want to support the podcast, you can go to wishidknownforwriters.com/support and you'll get access to the previous episodes, the Slack group, and the writing sprints. But we are not doing writing sprints because Jamie and I are at a conference this week. So no writing sprints the week this comes out. Yeah. So quick update on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's been going on?
You've
had a big week. Yeah.
Yes. Launched the book. I did some Facebook takeovers, which I don't normally do, and did lots of social media, sent out emails. My email list is my main marketing thing. Yeah. So did emails, did a reel, did some, the other thing, I did a Goodreads giveaway. So got those books out. I'll probably do another one. I think I'm going to do two, just like one pre-release and one post-release. Yeah. I did a book blast and a cozy mystery book tour, which is going to go on all month because I figured that's promotion that I can kind of extend out, hopefully the mentions and do some giveaways with those. So I've been doing a lot of commenting and thanking people for sharing about the book.
So this is the book you actually released in your store, your Shopify store. Yeah.
Right. I did it in my Shopify store and I had a special edition version, hardcover, paperback, and ebook. And then also they could get the regular edition with the no frills ebook. So yeah, I did that and I could tell a difference with my pre-orders. I think partly everything is changing now and it's harder to get visibility anyway. So I think that's impacted it. And I think all my really hardcore readers probably bought it from my store, which is fine. But I still had pre-orders and I feel like that's just like phase 2 now. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention is I've switched over to Authors Republic for my audiobooks and I could never get a pre-order on an audiobook. And I was able to get one through Authors Republic this time. Oh, wow. I emailed them for Audible and said, hey, this book is coming out this date. And I didn't ask for a pre-order, but a couple of days later, I noticed it was up on Audible. So I'm not sure if that's standard or if you have to email and ask for it. Right. But, I couldn't get a pre-order to save my life a couple of years ago. And I had readers begging for them and no response from Audible. So, that was great. So that was a change I've noticed. If that's helpful for anybody. Yeah. So that's been my focus
Very good.
for a while. But I did finish book 2 in this series the same day this one released. I've never done that before. So I feel pretty good about, I have something that I can put into that pipeline to get going.
When your next release be?
I'm thinking it'll probably be next year because I have to do the copy edits, proofread, And I like to do the audiobook too. And that's just going to take a while. It's funny because the interview today, we talk about rapid release. And this is definitely not rapid release.
Well, will you do the whole release on your store first and then?
I think so. And I think what I may do is do the release on the store. I know this series is going to have 3 books for sure. I think it may just be a trilogy. And so I'm going to do the 3 books. And maybe when I bring out the 3rd one, I may do a Kickstarter and just have all the books. And I was thinking I could do a sprayed edge for each of the books that if you put them together, it creates a picture of some kind.
Yeah.
You know, something like that, that would, and make them different than what I've had on my store. I might do that. Yeah. That's possibilities in the future, but that's a long way off.
I know.
So what about you?
Still working on the secret project and fighting off something going on with my eyes. I went to the eye doctor yesterday. I mean, it's not anything serious, but it's annoying and it makes it hard to see. It makes it hard to concentrate because my eyes are they're just watering and they itch a little bit. And so it's not allergies, they said, but we'll see. But anyway, so that's getting ready to go to the Better Faster conference. And
this will come out while we're at the conference. So
that's about it.
So we'll give y'all an update when we get back on the conference.
Yeah.
And we should get on with the interview.
Yeah, let's do that.
We are really excited to have Lynn Morrison and Anne Radcliffe with us. How are y'all?
Good. We're great.
Oh, we're glad you're here. It's always fun and challenging when we have 4 people on the podcast. This is going to be exciting for the audience.
Lynn Morrison and Anne Radcliffe met through the shared frustration of parenting and the need to vent about it online in a blog. They went from bloggers to contributing writers to editors and finally to full-time authors, all while having a ton of fun supporting one another. In 2024, Anne and Lynn paired their love of Regency romances like Bridgerton together with their bad habit of killing people off in their books to create a chart-topping Crown Jewels Regency mystery series.
I love it.
Short and sweet.
That's right. Well, it says it all. Well, and because you haven't been on the podcast before, tell us, how did you get into writing?
Well, that's a convoluted story. I've been writing adjacent. I'd like to say writing adjacent because that's the truth, for a long time. I wanted to be an author at 14. My grandfather was a writer. I went to school for screenwriting, and then I sort of fell into editing and content writing more. And sort of on the subject of the collaboration and everything, I got into writing officially because Lynn made me. And that is the truth.
Sometimes you need a little push, huh?
Yes, I had a very bad case of perfectionism and inferiority. So between the two things, it was sort of like, well, and I've told this story actually on a different podcast earlier. Lynn came to me at the beginning of this year and she's like, Anne, have you seen Bridgerton? And I said, no, I had not. She's like, well, hurry up and go watch it right now because we are writing this book.
Oh, cool.
So is this your first series the series you've written together? Are these your first books?
We had one previous book that we wrote together in urban fantasy and paranormal women's fiction. So we had been collaborating before on other projects, but this was a departure from me because I had not written Regency before.
Yeah. Very cool. That is so cool. What a great story. Yeah.
Well, we will get into all of that more in detail in a little bit, but we want to get to Lynn and get an update real quick. Tell us what you've been doing since you were on the podcast last time.
Yeah, I think it's been a couple of years now, which seems crazy that I've been here long enough that it can be a couple of years. But I would say since then, I figured out what my lane is, which, is one of those things that can take time, and kind of realizing that I dabbled in paranormal cozy and paranormal women's fiction, but realized that what I really needed to be in was historical mystery because I kept researching stuff in the past for my books. And it's like, why don't you just put them there? Yeah, so I switched over to historical mystery, started in 1920s, which I'm sure Sarah will appreciate as a fun space to write in.
Yeah.
And did well in it and said, well, I'm in my lane. I should probably stay in my lane. and saw the opportunity to branch out a little bit and go over into Regency. It seemed like the right decision to make at the start of this year. And then I just grabbed Anne and said, come on, we're writing this. And crazily enough, she said, okay, rather than being like, what are you talking about? Or no, I don't have time for this.
So was it an automatic yes for you, Anne, or was it easy?
It was, I mean, I'm not going to lie. There was a moment of Lynn is crazy, but there was also, well, what else are you doing? And the answer was nothing. I was not doing anything that would say, no, I should not take this crazy trip with them. So we did.
Awesome. I love that. I love the yes. We always, there's so many reasons to say no to things, and you didn't, and it's paid off. I love that. Well, so we sort of talked about how the collaboration came to be. Anything else we should know about that? No?
I mean, I think, as we said in the bio, we both started off as bloggers, and then we moved on to the editorial team for this parenting website we were both collaborating on. And that gave us a real intro to like how to work together as part of a team. Not that we didn't know how to do it, but how to do it within a writing space,
right?
Which can be quite different than just having like your normal coworker at your day job. So yeah, I think we had learned a lot from that. When I when I headed into writing books, I dragged Anne along and was like, you have to edit my books because your grammar is better than mine. And I trust you to tell me if I'm doing something wrong. So it was like, she said, okay, because she does. I don't know why she trusts me after all this time, but she somehow still does. So yeah, we had a long history of knowing each other's strengths and weaknesses and, knowing how much better we were when we worked together on things.
Yeah.
That fed a lot, I think, into, earlier this year, maybe like, we're going to drop everything and write these books. And we're saying, okay, I'll do it.
Right. And y'all are in different places, not even in the same country. So tell us how you set up the collaborations, how you work together.
Well, Anne, you set up the heavy lifting. So you want to take that one?
I mean, technology has been like, if we have learned one thing from the pandemic, it's how to collaborate at a distance.
Yes.
So the answer is both long and short. It's Discord and Google Docs. So we keep in touch. In fact, right before this podcast, we were on Discord together, and we leave an open connection. Even when we're not talking to one another, the connection's open between us. And if we get hung up, if we have a question, we automatically just start talking to each other, and we can reach out at any moment.
That's interesting. I haven't heard people using Discord, but it makes sense because you don't have to send a text. Can you get online? Can you get on
Exactly.
Zoom? Yeah.
So we sort of have set hours of the day when we know we're both going to be at our desk and working. And, for her, it's morning. For me, it's afternoon. And also, because she's like amazing at Discord, created a whole Discord server for us where we have like basically the series Bible is all in there. We have all the links. When we hired a VA, we added her to the server. So then she has access to like any images that we're creating for Facebook ads. She can use them for the social media or blurbs, any questions she wants to ask. She can grab either one of us really quickly just by putting a comment on the Discord. So that's been really helpful. And then in terms of the writing, as Anne said, we use Google Docs, but because we're writing together at the same time, we're in the Google Doc at the same time, writing like literally one chapter above or below the other one. And it can be really funny sometimes because you'll be writing and then you'll be suddenly thrown down a page because the person above you skipped to a new page. You're like, where did I go? But it is nice, as Anne said, when we get stuck, that I can be like, I'm stuck, and Anne can just click up to where I'm at and see what I've written and help me figure out what I should be doing next.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's
like
really fascinating.
Real-time collaboration. Because I've heard of people who like one person will write a chapter and the next person, and then they hand it off. And, it's a time lag between them. And it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of it at the same time.
I mean, the urban fantasy, we did hand off back and forth, which did have its own, I think, fun things that brought to the mix, especially because you'd wake up in the morning and be like, oh my God, what do I have to start from? Yeah. But working together, definitely. I mean, one of the things I think we both really wanted out of this was like some sense of having someone that was working with us, because we're both isolated working from home, and being online at the same time and finding a way to work in the same dock, it like not only fed the creativity, but also that like someone else is there and I'm not sitting by my house in my pajamas for the, 500th day in a row.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's really good. Well, what do you wish you'd known about collaborating before you started?
We were talking about that right before we got on the call, because we were like, I felt like we both thought we'd learned a whole lot over the years of getting to know one another, but we did land on one thing we wanted to share.
Oh, great.
Yes. And it's not just honesty, it's brutal honesty.
Yeah, I would think you have to have that. So you have to be you have to be willing to give it, and you have to be willing to receive it. That's hard.
It was one of those things that slows down the process a lot, because you want to respect each other's opinions as a writer, right? You're like, I don't want to tell her I hate this idea, or like, I don't think that quite gives the message that we're looking for, something like that. But then you find yourself ceding ground. You're like, okay, well, it's not a hill I'm willing to die on.
Right.
And then, but if you flagged it, there's usually a reason why you have. You might not even know the reason exactly until much, much later.
Yeah.
When you get down to the end.
Hard to fix.
And then it's like, well, crap, if I had said something about, this character not being quite right or whatever, we would have saved so much time.
Right.
That has been the learning process for us. Like we have always been kind of honest with us, but not the more honest than you would be with your spouse honest.
Oh, wow.
Well, because it's like, it's your precious baby, right? You're writing this like story from your heart that inevitably the characters are some version of you. And, to be able to go, that's a terrible idea, like that's a really hard thing to say. And, we also, as part of the brutal honesty, we also had to learn not to settle for something that was like, okay, fine. Like we're working through character names or something like that. Series title. We worked on the series title forever. And we kept just being like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. But we've learned to not stop at, yeah, that's fine. To keep going until we're both like, yes, I love that. It's amazing. Whether that's in the stories or the series title or whatever. When we land on that point that we're both so enthusiastic about it, then we know we've found that magic. But you have to you have to be willing to go like, it's all right, but it's not great. A lot of times.
That is the upside of saying no. The upside of saying no, because, and I think we've come to the realization that saying no isn't saying no forever. It just means that you haven't found the solution that makes you both happy.
Right.
And when one of us has learned to say no, it has always come out better in the end.
You two were friends before you started writing together. So I think that's part of why it's so hard to find a collaboration partner. A lot of people would like to collaborate with somebody, but if you just pick somebody who also writes something similar to you and you try and collaborate and you don't have a background, I think it would be much harder. Do you think your friendship has helped get you further along this road?
I mean, yes, maybe, but we did start out collaborating as strangers on this blog where we just didn't know each other.
Yeah.
Although that said, that blog was blunt honesty about parenting.
So maybe it was a more open space, but it wasn't like we're going to write 70,000 words together. It's like, here's a 500-word post on whatever we were writing on that particular day.
Right.
So yeah, I think maybe, the takeaway that somebody else could use would be find something that's not gigantic to start collaborating on, like shared social post, a takeover, like something little, and see where you find that jam working together, and then extend from there.
Because it really isn't. I mean, I keep coming back to this because probably this is where I would have the most trouble. It's not finding a person who can take your criticism well. It's being able to give that criticism well. And I'm a peacemaker in some ways, so I probably would err on the side of, well, okay, if you feel real strongly about it. And I mean, so to me, that's just fascinating that you really can draw that line and just say, no, this isn't, for whatever reason, it's not working. I can't even tell you why it's not working, but it's not working. and the other person accepts that, and you agree that you're going to move on from that.
But we didn't start there.
It was a process. Yeah. That's something that we learned after we started doing this series.
Right. Oh, good. Yeah. Well, good. That makes me feel better because I was like, that would be so hard. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about incorporating trends into writing, because that's basically what y'all have done. You saw the trend with Bridgerton and the excitement around that and wrote a series, not exactly like it, but similar to it, or had some of those characteristics in it. Is that how you describe it?
Yes.
So tell us about, like, if somebody's interested in doing this, how can you spot trends?
Yep. So I'll take this one because I tend to be the one that's constantly watching the charts. Yeah, I mean, I had gotten into the 1920s space because I had friends who had moved over to the 1920s and they were doing super well. And they were like, you're already researching all this history. Why don't you just write a proper historical mystery? And, you should just do 1920s because it's really hot right now. And I could see how the trend and Downton and, all the other things that were going on in the media, Peaky Blinders, were really elevating that particular niche within the genre. But towards the end of last year, I noticed that, well, first of all, there were a lot of people getting into 1920s because everybody was going, this is hot, let me jump in too, which, happens. And I could also see that they weren't hitting the levels of success people in the past were. Like, I definitely was not in the front end of the wave. I mean, Sarah was on the front end of that wave, way ahead of me. But, even when I joined, it still wasn't that crowded. Well, yeah, but still, it wasn't that crowded when I got in. A year later, it was very different situation. So I was kind of looking around and going, well, if people aren't reading these anymore, what else are they reading? And I could see that within the charts, we were getting stuff like a lot of Victorian, a lot of Regency. And I was like, why are people being so drawn back, deeper in time? What's going on that's driving this? And then when I saw somewhere that Bridgerton was going to come back with the new season, it was like a light bulb went off on my head of like, people are getting excited because there was also the Law According to Lydia Poet. I don't know if you guys watched that show. That was a great show. Yeah. Also kind of in the mystery space, definitely Victorian, Scarlet and the Duke, another one there. Right? Yeah. So there were lots of popular TV shows, and Bridgerton is like an entity into itself. Yeah. So I was like, this is absolutely going to have an impact on the charts. And I think that Regency, which is, very well established, niche within historical mysteries, I think those books will all get elevated. So that made me decide we needed to write I needed to write a Regency mystery. At the time I thought, I'll go write a Regency mystery. Then it was like looking at when Bridgerton was going to come out, that they were splitting it into the 2 parts of the season. They were going to do the 4 episodes and then a month later, the other 4. I was like, well, that kind of lends itself to a rapid release series. So how can I get 3 books out by the summer that are not even in my thought process? And the only way I could do it was to bring Anne in. And I think that's really the challenge, is like, how do you be early enough to spot them? And then how do you figure out how to write those books really quickly? Yeah. So that for me was, I think the bigger challenge was, how do I get these out fast? And there was just no way I could see to do it on my own.
When did you start working on them?
I think the end of January. It was very early in the year. I had, of course, like all good writers, sent out my newsletter at the start of the year going, this will be my publishing schedule for the year. And then a week later, I was like, forget that. We're doing something completely different. And we're writing Regency mysteries. Yes, exactly.
And so the first one released when?
We did one at the end of May so that it would land in between part 1 and part 2. We did one at the end of June. So when people came off part 2 and wanted more. And then we did the 3rd at the end of July. And then the 4th one we're doing now, and it'll be a Christmas mystery.
That's awesome. Impressive.
Yeah, really impressive. That's so great.
Because starting a new series, you need a lot of ramp time, to get everything going. So that's great.
We didn't have it. It was like trial by fire, 100%.
So the advice would be just watch the charts, or...
I mean, I think you have to look at the big picture, right? I mean, for me, it wasn't just what was happening at the charts, but it was like, what is driving that change? And knowing that it was like TV, or movies that were going to be driving it. That stuff gets announced way far in. Like, Anne and I already know that the next Bridgerton season is going to be 2026. So we're going, well, what are we going to do in 2026 to capitalize on this again? Now we've got 2 years notice. Right. Not that we don't have 75 books to write between now and then, but, in theory, we have 2 years notice to think about how we'll make the most of that. And this year there'll be a new Downton movie. And so I'm sure we'll make good profits off of our 1920 series.
How did you incorporate like the key tropes or the trends and the tropes without annoying your readers, because yours was Bridgerton added to a sweet historical mystery, which those, you wouldn't think those would go together, just saying that sentence. Yes. So how did you do that?
I read a lot of historical mysteries. I've read loads and loads and loads of Regency, which helped me a lot in understanding the trends. It's not the trends, the tropes, I should say, of what people expect.
Right.
You know, what are the universal fantasies associated with Regency? And much of those were exactly the same in Bridgerton. So the things that we wanted to try and bring over to make it, what we didn't want was for people to feel like we were trying to be Bridgerton. We wanted it to feel Bridgerton adjacent, if that makes sense. Otherwise, you know, with a fan base like that, you run the risk of them being like, this isn't Bridgerton, and stomping out mad. So we said, well, you know, a key player in Bridgerton is obviously Queen Charlotte. So how do we bring Queen Charlotte into our universe? How do we use her as an anchor point? We knew we had to have the romance in there, but instead of going, well, the romance is going to be in book 1, we way slowed it down across 3 books. And we would sometimes say, like, let's do the Regency equivalent of a kiss. And what would the Regency equivalent of a kiss mean? It might be like your hands brush one another on the edge of the dance floor. And so I think that was how we dialed it back from what you would see on TV.
Because they don't dial it back
no.
on TV. Yeah.
Which is fun too, but, you know, not, I think, what was expected in the genre.
So how did you leverage market interest in the trend to drive sales? Did you do it through ads? Did you do it through social media?
We did all of those things. We joined some of the Bridgerton Facebook groups. Who were very thirsty people, by the way, very thirsty. But we saw what they were doing. They were talking about, you know, memes, and they were sharing bits about what they were excited about. So it was a great source of feedback about, like, what sort of things would people be, like, most interested in seeing. And we used that a lot in both writing and other things like the ads. We experimented with memes. Those kind of did hit and miss depending on, like, the audience, because a lot of historical does trend a little bit older. But yeah, it's been a bit of a learning process all the way, and been a good one.
Yeah. That's
like,
great.
I think it let us get into TikTok, which we probably would not have gone on TikTok if we were just doing like a non-Bridgerton Regency romance, if you will.
Right.
But we knew so much of that crowd was there, and neither of us had any experience with TikTok. So that was why we hired a VA. And she uses a lot of, like, the little in CapCut, the little Bridgerton people that you can add onto the video, making faces or whatever, so that we could really make that tie in together, but in a way that felt authentic on that platform. I can't take any credit for that because that was all our VA.
Are the books in KU or are they wide?
KU.
KU. And are you running ads?
Yes.
Yeah. Amazon ads or Facebook ads?
We started from the very beginning with Facebook ads and a little bit of BookBub ads. I think I'm like the rare unicorn that does well and likes BookBub ads. I know everybody always complains about them, and I certainly...
You and David Gogren. Yeah.
Yeah, we're the only two on the planet who like them.
You're in good company, though.
And I did use his method, so that's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had, you know, we knew which authors we wanted to target, and I felt more confident that with, like, the imagery and the Bridgerton meets mystery, you know, tagline, that we would do well on BookBub ads versus Amazon, where I might not have been able to use that. So yeah, we started with Facebook and BookBub. We weren't spending, I mean, I want to say we weren't spending crazy amounts, because I've certainly heard people spending crazy amounts a day, but it was profitable from day one with book 1. And I mean, we've not really increased our budget since then. We've added Amazon ads in, but only in the last few weeks, I would say, like around Nick, we finally buckled down and started to do them.
Well, with the rapid release schedule, that probably, it helps. And you don't have to do as many ads, or I've heard. I wouldn't know. I've never rapid released a thing in my life. So, but I've heard that it helps.
It did help. I mean, I think I had done rapid release the year before, so I had seen how quickly it could, you know, build reader enthusiasm. And that's why I wanted to do it again, even though it about killed us. But it definitely made it easier for us to do the investment on the ads because we could see how quickly we would be getting the money in. Because if you're like, well, if I'm profitable from book 1, then at book 2, suddenly I'm doubly profitable. At book 3, I'm going to be triply profitable.
Right.
And that made a big difference. The other thing we did well with that helped with funding was we sold the audio rights to Podium actually before we had written more than like the first paragraph. So knowing that we had that sort of support from an audiobook publisher definitely gave us a nudge. And then we got advances from them in before we started releasing the books because we would hand the scripts over to them early.
Did you approach them? Did they approach you? How did you you were going to ask that?
That's the question. Everyone's going to be going, wait, how did you do that?
So I had sold Podium the audio rights to my 1920s series. And I will tell you how that went because for me, I had never sold audio rights before, so I had no idea what to expect. Tantor approached me and I had heard, some good things, some bad things, as you do about every vendor about Tantor. So I went and asked some friends what they thought. And a friend of mine had just signed with Podium. And she said, well, why don't you approach the Podium team and see if they would like to counter offer? I did. They said yes. I had a great chat with them. I just felt like that was the right home for my books. And so I signed with them. And they were in the process of producing all of those. So when I decided we were going to do this Regency thing with the Bridgerton hook, I just put together this whole pitch and it was like very much a business pitch. So I said, this is the plan. This is why we're doing this timing. This is why I think it will be a success. These are the hooks we're going to put in. Would you be interested in discussing this with us? And I really just thought maybe they would say, yes, we'd like first look at the manuscript when you get it done. But they came back and said, yeah, that sounds fantastic. We'll just add it to your current contract. So we're like, amazing. We have money to pay for covers. Go, know?
That's true. I mean, because it is, there are expenses tied to, especially when you're rapid releasing. I mean, you got to come up with 3 covers or 4 covers really fast So are you continuing on in this Bridgerton series? Like now, are you holding off doing something else and then bringing it back when Bridgerton comes back? Bridgerton-esque series.
We're continuing on. Yeah. The original plan right from day one was to write trilogies. But they were all going to be so like everybody gets a season, just like in the Bridgerton show.
Yeah.
This helped a lot in the planning of the books too, because then we're like, okay, what is the overarching plan for the couple, as well as figuring out the mystery for each individual book and how does that tie in? So we do plan to pick up with 2 characters who will be familiar if you've read the first trilogy. Actually, it's 4 books now. Because Lynn's like, we're writing a Christmas book. And I, of course, said, okay.
Yeah. It's a quartet now.
Yes, it's a quartet now. But yeah, it's going to be same universe, familiar couple, and they're going to have their own shenanigans to experience.
So you have one couple that's like the lead couple for the first set of books, and then you're going to switch to a different couple for the next trilogy or however many you do for that. Is that what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that was really from bringing in like the Bridgerton environment. Like that's what people like in the romance world, right? Is you have like a family of brothers or sisters, or you have best friends and, you see each one take turns going through getting their match. And that's what we wanted to do. But mystery readers like series. So that's what we said. Well, what if we give them trilogies?
So how do you handle that? Like does I guess because it's a slow, very, very, very slow burn romance, it's more of a mystery than it is a romance. It's a mystery with a romance.
Yes.
Adjacent storyline.
So we take the romance like beat sheet, if you will, and we spread it over 3 books.
Okay.
So kind of they will get their happily ever after, happy for now, whatever that is, at the end of book 3 rather than from the end of book 1.
Then the Christmas book will be the couple from the first set of books working together again for a Christmas mystery. People will love that.
I wanted to go back and ask you about the author name. So what did you choose for the author name and how did you come to that? Just because I think that people will be curious how you handled it.
We just put both of our names on there. Yeah, we didn't. I mean, we had some discussions around potentially coming up with a blended name, a la Alona Andrews or something like that. we had a lot of discussions on that. But since I already had a readership in historical mystery, we just kept coming back to, well, financially, what makes the most sense is to leverage the audience that you've been building rather than try and explain that, no, this is you with another name.
Right. Because sometimes readers don't understand that. They're like, why would you do this? We in the author world is like totally common. Yeah. If you're creating a new series and a new pen name, that's even more work because you have to establish the name everywhere. And so I think that's probably a good choice, especially if you're in the same genre.
What I love about all of this is that you took the market where it is and you made this stuff fit into where the market is now. We have a mature market. You can't really play around with a lot of stuff right now because the market is mature and we know what works and we know what doesn't work. And so you, instead of coming up with a cutesy little pen name that would have incorporated both your names or something, you went with what you know works. And I really love that. I think that is so, so smart because 7 years ago, 5 years ago, we could have maybe taken more chances, but now it's better to go with the tried and true, which makes things a little boring sometimes. I mean, we were just before we got on talking about Ink and how there aren't a whole lot of new things. So, you feel like you're going to conferences and hearing the same things. Well, it's because nothing real new has happened. But what you guys have done is taken something new and made it fit into an established market. And I just love that. I think it's so, so brilliant.
Like, I don't think I can emphasize enough how much this whole thing was like a very planned business decision for both of us.
Yeah.
So I went Anne says, yes, I was like, we're writing Regency, come on, and just hooked her and made her come on, which is true. But, I was like, here's what I'm making in the 1920s space. Here's what I think the possibilities are if we went into Regency. This is the rank I think we could achieve. This is what that would mean in terms of income. This is the, cost we're going to have, like investment we'll have to put in, all that kind of stuff. It was like we were going into business together, right? So I had to approach it like a business. Once we had signed off, like, yep, we're going to do this. Then it was just fun shenanigans with the two of us all day long, making ourselves laugh and beating our heads against the wall.
Right.
But behind the scenes, it's always like, I don't like what the ads are doing. Let's tweak the ads and, the not so sexy side of writing.
Right. And if you don't mind, I'd like to ask a little bit of a personal question in that you guys have a contract together, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is so smart too. You have your contract. Everything is, the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. You make sure you know what's going to happen if this dissolves or if it goes on forever, or if one of you, God forbid, something happens to one of you and that is a smart business decision. And I think that's so great. Well, you mentioned you used beta feedback to make sure you were hitting the mark. Tell us about that.
So I have a few alpha readers that get really early access to my stuff, like before it's final edits or anything. Mm-hmm. So we gave it to what we gave the first, what do we do? The first 5-6 chapters. Does that sound right, Anne?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we gave the first 5 or 6 chapters to one of them and said, what do you think? And she was silent for way longer than either of us were comfortable with, which probably means like more than 24 hours.
It's always so good. Right? I mean, it's usually not good. Yeah.
So you're like, oh my God, I haven't heard from her. It's been 12 minutes, But she came back and she said, I love it. I want more. When am I getting more? So that was such a good drive for us, I think, to keep going. Then we gave her the full book when it was done. I feel like we gave it to a couple other people, like my dad, Anne's mom, that sort of thing too. But then we put the book up on NetGalley for a month before release. And we did a Goodreads giveaway because we really wanted to start drumming up conversation around it, and letting people know it was coming. Putting it up on NetGalley felt terrifying because, you never know what you're going to get. But we did see a lot of Regency readers pick up the book, and they did say, because we can see we were vetting all the people that were applying to review the book. And they liked it. They gave a critique, as NetGalley reviewers will, but they liked how it went. The other thing we did is we hired a Regency editor. And do you want to talk about that part?
Yeah. Zoe Burton, I think it's her.
Yes, I think that's right.
And she gave some incredible feedback because both of us were kind of new to the Regency space. So we were like, make sure that, we've got the important historical aspects and we're not going way, way off. And she came back with some really helpful feedback, especially and she was communicative too. Like there was just one scene where it's like, okay, we know the waltz isn't historically accurate, but we really want to have them like dance with one another. Like, how do we do it? She was great. She came back with feedback. Well, you couldn't do this, at the fancy posh places, but pretty like the waltz, if you had it over here, you might have gotten away with it. It's like, okay.
Regency readers are very particular about those things. I mean, you have to hit those notes, pardon the pun, and to make sure you're hitting their expectation of what a Regency romance is. That was really smart.
What will y'all do going forward? Obviously you're going to keep writing the series. Are you going to each continue to write individual books and then come back together to do collaborations? What's your plan?
We've got at least 6 more books planned in the works in this universe. And Lynn has been shouting notes at me on Discord from the gym. Like, I just had this other great series idea. Like, I'm like, okay, well, we'll put that on the shelf. We'll get to it eventually. And
2029, we'll pencil that in.
Yeah. And also she has been very much on me to pick up and start my own series, which I've done a lot of work as an editor and especially as a dev editor. And it's always sort of been like, I'm always the bridesmaid and never the bride. So Lynn is like, nope, I'm handing you the bouquet. It's your turn.
Yeah.
Start writing. So she has been on me very much like a mother. It's like, how are we making out with your outline?
Like a kid with homework,
Okay. Yes, exactly. Have you done your homework? It's like, yes, Mom.
Yes, Mom. So that, I guess that goes, but y'all work from an outline when you're working together?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Yeah, that
can
makes
be
it
traumatic, though.
Yeah,
it does make it a lot easier. I mean, we're both kind of natural plotters, and like some much more detailed outline than I do. I'm like, if the last third of the book is just chapter names, that's sufficient. And it's like, absolutely not. So we spend a lot more time. However, as she has rightfully pointed out many times, we don't get stuck when we have a fully fleshed out outline for the whole book.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I wouldn't know that either, but it's true. I've heard that's true.
Well, you outline. I think everybody plots anyway, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you either go through and do it before, you do it after. It doesn't really make that big a difference.
You do
whatever works for you.
You do it in stages. That's kind of how I do it. Like you do a little bit and you know what's coming vaguely, but you don't have it all fleshed out.
Yeah. That's my way. That's not Anne's way.
Right. Great.
True.
Yeah.
That's great. This has been so fun and so interesting. I'm just in awe. And I think you guys have done just an amazing job. Tell everybody what you think the best thing you've done to set yourself up for success has been.
Other than brutal honesty?
Yes.
I mean, I think it's treating this whole thing like a business. We have the urban fantasy that we co-wrote a couple of years back, and that was just fun. And, we finally earned out the cover and we were like, amazing. That's what success looks like for that.
Yeah.
And we have another project, which we fast drafted and just like parked on the side for ages because I don't know that it'll make any money, but it was fun. We had a lot of fun doing that. But with this one, we're like, no, this project has to make money. We have to replace income, this has targets. And so everything has to be a business decision.
Right.
But as a result, then when things work out, you're like, I know why it worked out. I know how to repeat this. There's no guessing. Why was it successful? I know why, because we had a whole plan that we executed. And I think that will, hopefully help, put us in good stead for future success with the next evolutions of the series. But, this is the writing world, so it could all change on a dime tomorrow, right?
On a dime.
To say that.
But it won't. It won't.
Yeah.
I have a slightly different answer. I think, and we discount this, I think, but the answer is finding someone who shores up your weaknesses. Lynn has a very set a very different set of strengths than I do. And I would like to think I'm bringing stuff to the table that she needs.
Yeah, she is.
Such as the back half of, her outlines. But having that person, even if it's not a co-writing situation, just to have that person as your muse, your emotional support animal, however you want to phrase it, it drives you to become a better, more successful person because they're always looking at the angles that you aren't looking.
Right.
So Lynn is looking at it as a business perspective. I'm just here to write. I like to write.
Right.
Obviously, together that works out better if one of us is like, no, we need to make money at this.
Yeah, it's a good blend, I think. Jamie and I have found this with the podcast. She has certain things that she's really good at. I have other things that I'm good at. And we kind of each other do our own thing. And then it all seems to, like, we fill in the gaps for each other somehow. I think it works really well. If you can find somebody who has not all the same strengths as you and things that you enjoy, that,
Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting us come on.
Tell everybody the name of the series, where they can find it, find out more about you, all of that stuff.
So the series is called The Crown Jewels Regency Mysteries. And the first book is The Missing Diamond, Diamond of the First Water.
Diamond of the Seas.
And you can find them all on Kindle or, Amazon, I guess, Kindle Unlimited, and on Audible for the audiobooks.
Nice. And why don't you each give your individual websites? And Lynn, you do a Clubhouse room, right?
I do. Yeah. So you can find me at lynnmorrisonwriter.com, all shoved together as one word. And then I co-host the weekly Cozy Mystery Clubhouse in the Clubhouse app. It's every Monday at noon. We have a Facebook group, the Cozy Mystery Clubhouse for Writers.
Really easy. AnneRadcliffe.com.
Perfect. Okay. We will have all those links in the show notes. And thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate your sharing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for letting us come on.
Yes, thank you.
All right. We'll see everybody next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.